Stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to show you how you can get a copy of Hasbro's Tide Whale plus a bunch of other great savings on Beyblade products. Welcome Bladers, this is the UK BBXN and today we are discussing Hover Wyvern, aka the Power Pringle, or if your opponent's using it, the Panic Pringle. Now this blade originally debuted in mid-2025 as part of the Hasbro Drop Attack Stadium set alongside Impact Drake. But this isn't to say that this will remain a Hasbro exclusive. Takara Tomy are actually doing a purple Hover Wyvern as part of a DMM lottery release in Japan, which means that eventually it might come out in other colours in other sets, but that remains to be seen as of the time of this video. Due to the fact that it was a Hasbro release and wasn't really that readily available in Asia, combined with the fact that, yeah, it was a Hasbro exclusive blade, a lot of people kind of slept on Hover Wyvern when it first came out, but that is no longer the case. It is a very popular blade, and myself included. That's why I chose Hover Wyvern to make this first video, which I will continue to do for many other blades, but yeah, I picked Hover Wyvern first because I fell in love with this blade. This was the first Beyblade X release where I felt a connection to the blade. So yeah, it's a really cool blade. It's definitely got its fans and it's not hard to see why. It is a powerhouse. And a large part of that power comes from the fact that it is a two-bladed hyperbolic paraboloid shape, which is a bit of a mouthful. It's also known as a Pringle shape, and the community has definitely taken that on board. But this thing performs very well, being able to smash opponents into the extreme zone or pocket them, as well as being a very capable ratchet sniper, largely due to the two upward-facing blade points of the Pringle shape. It is marketed as being a defense blade, and it performs very well as such. However, you can also use it as a smash attack blade. That is very popular. You can run it on a stamina build and it still does very well. The blade itself is what makes this good, so you can basically throw it up on a lot of different combinations of ratchets and bits and it still does well. Hover Wyvern on average weighs around 35 grams and is a very competitively viable blade. It is a high point scorer, able to take on basically any combination someone throws up against you. One of the really good things about the shape is it naturally is able to escape the pocket quite frequently as well. Pair that with a 160 as well. Oh, you are getting out of that pocket so many times. It also works on most bits. As I've said before, it's a very versatile blade. The one thing you must watch out for is the recoil that works so well in its favor can also work against it. So you've got to really be careful on your positioning when using this blade and be aware that this is a bit of a high risk blade to run. But now it's time to look at some potential builds for Hover Wyvern. As I said before, it's a very versatile blade, and so we're going to look at some combos for all four of the types in Beyblade. That's attack, defense, stamina, and balance, and these are all going to be competitively meta viable. So let's get into it. Starting with the classic attack combo of 760 low rush. If you don't have low rush, maybe substitute in rush or underflat. Both of those will work just as well. However, you've got to be careful about these 760s. Not all 760s are created equal. It's nothing to do with like Hasbro or Takara Tomy. Just some are more loose than others, and also depending on what bit you have really affects the burst resistance of some 760 ratchets. So just do a little bit of testing and bear in mind that also doing too much testing will make it weaker and they all degrade over time. But this is a real monster of a build. It does not have too much stamina. It's a bit of a glass cannon, to be honest, but if you learn your attack launches right, you are really able to take on basically anyone with this. It might suffer more with some anti-attack combos, things using level, for instance. However, the vast majority of things you're going to come up against, this has a good shot of taking them down. However, you've got to be careful. This especially is super volatile, and if you don't launch correctly, it can end really badly for you and you can end up in the extreme zone before you even realise what's happened. So just take care. However, we are moving on now to defense types. Now, Hover Wyvern is billed as a defense type, and it's not hard to see why. It absolutely rocks on this setup. I'm talking about Hover Wyvern on 160 dot. Dot's a little bit of a contentious bit. If you're not a fan of it, you can replace this with Wedge or Hexa or even Underneedle all of these works, and if you want to go a bit riskier, you can have 450 as well to get it a little bit lower down. I personally don't go for that. It's a bit too much scraping, as well as the fact that 450 tends to be quite burst prone, and Hover Wyvern has a lot of recoil, so you really don't want something like that. Make sure you've got a tight 160 as well. This is a powerhouse, and even if it gets pocketed, it can come out of the pocket. The amount of times where I've been testing using this, and it's gone into the pocket, jumped out, and burst the opponent on a 960. I'm talking like testing against Silver Wolf and Wizard Rod. Yeah, the amount of times that's happened is crazy. So yeah, it's got incredible counter-attack potential, and it's got a really good stamina, as well as being quite defensive. It's hard to pocket, not impossible. You do have to be careful on your launches, but yeah, this is a highly recommended build from me. But we are now moving on to stamina builds. Now, I've gone for Hover Wyvern on 960 low orb for this. If you're not a fan of low orb, you can always change it for ball or free ball, and it works just as well. There's a little bit of variation in the playstyle, but it basically plays the same. It's still got a really strong defense due to the blade, and 960 offers the optimum burst resistance for that. You can, again, go for something like a 450, as I said, but you're running a bit more of a risk there, and with stamina, you're all about minimizing the risk in order to maximize your potential, because you might not be scoring the high points from pocketing. You still have the potential, though. It has some quite decent early on offensive potential, so if you learn your launches right, you can really make use of this in both an offensive and defensive capacity, and either outspin or hopefully pocket/extreme finish the opponent. And last but not least, it's the balance build. Now, I have picked Hover Wyvern on 360 level. However, you can change level for kick or taper, both of which are very good in of their own right. They have a bit of a different playstyle, but fundamentally they are all balanced builds. Now, this is another very powerful and hard to pocket build. It's also got very strong anti-attack, and life after death spin is very important, because the thing about level is even when it looks like it is done for, it still keeps going. Now, it doesn't always get those late game finishes like you might ideally want. However, the thing that it does really do well is absolutely pummel the opponent. So no matter what other bit they're on, this can usually get them down to the point where they're destabilized. So even if you're not getting the pocket, you're still going to have a good chance at actually scoring some points. So make sure to learn your launch techniques, because level can be shot out in a whole bunch of different ways. And yeah, so you can really utilize that to your advantage to get the upper hand on your opponent no matter what they are running. And just as a quick side note, even though a lot of people were quite negative about Merge when it came out, through some testing through myself and Blader Zero, who is the house blader of the channel, we actually found that Hover Wyvern on Merge is a powerhouse. So it might not be competitively viable, but if you've got it, definitely give it a try. You will have so much fun. And finally, we've got some tips to help you maximize Hover Wyvern's effectiveness. First of all, a good tilt is going to do wonders on this blade. The two upwards facing points really do damage if they can get underneath a blade. Even if they don't burst it, it can do some really devastating hits. Also, its shape enables it to escape the pockets. It does not need a 160 if you really feel you want to save your 160 for something else in your deck. Alternatively, put the 160 on this if you just want every chance of it getting out of the pocket. Yeah, you're doubling your chances, but it does not need it. And finally, learn your positioning. I know I said it earlier, but this has a lot of recoil, and if you don't position it right, the recoil works against you, and you'll lose loads of points from just getting pocketed by careless mistakes. So bear all that in mind, and you will have a very good time with Hover Wyvern. But don't go anywhere just yet, because I said I could save you money on Beyblades, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. If you head on over to jesterino.com, you can find a selection of the latest and greatest Beyblade X releases, as well as some pre-orders as well. And if you use code UKBBXN, you will get a cheeky 10% off. I run this all myself, so not only you help support the channel, you're also sticking it to the billionaires, which is always fun. So yeah, head on over to jesterino.com, use code UKBBXN, and I'll see you in the next one.